Hi, I'm Joe Moreau. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Technology for the Foothill-De Anza Community College District. I'm also the executive sponsor for the Online Education Initiative. This is the March Educational Technology Advisory Committee Town Hall meeting, and we're providing an update on the open online educational initiative that our district leads on behalf of the state. This is one of a series of town hall meetings sponsored by ETech, our district-wide technology planning committee, in an effort to connect with more of our stakeholders throughout the district, make sure that you have information about what we're working on from a technology planning and technology priority perspective, and then can provide any input that you might like to give us on how we can refine those priorities or planning recommendations. So with that, I'd like to talk about the Online Education Initiative, or OEI as we call it. A little bit of background on OEI. This was started a few years ago, was a proposal from the governor's office. Back in 2011, 12, we were seeing headlines like you see here, where we were potentially turning away almost 700,000 students from the community colleges in the state. We didn't end up turning away that many students, but it was still quite a lot. I think final numbers were closer to 500,000. So it was an egregious decrease in our capacity over the last few years, and is something that we're still recovering from. The governor knew that this was problematic and really wanted to see if there were ways that we could quickly grow back the capacity of the system. And so in 2013, or late 2013, he called then Chancellor, statewide community college Chancellor Jack Scott, and said, Jack, I've got an idea. I've figured out how we're going to save the community colleges. We're going to do MOOCs. And for those of you who may not be familiar with that term, a MOOC, M-O-O-C, is a massive open online course. And back in 2011, 2012, there was a lot of press over MOOCs being done by Stanford and Harvard and MIT and other organizations. So I'm sure that Jack said, well, Governor, I'm not really sure what a MOOC is, but I'll bring my staff over and we'll talk to you and see if we can come up with something that'll work. So the Chancellor, Jack Scott, and his staff went over to the governor's office and said, well, you know, Governor, we really have been doing this in the community colleges for a long time. We've been doing online instruction for a long time. We've been doing distance ed for a long time. Starting back in the 60s, we were doing television courses, live TV courses, recorded TV courses, all kinds of stuff. About 10 years ago or more, we really transitioned away from telecourses to online courses. And our faculty have really been very instrumental in building the online course capacity of our community colleges. And they've really done it with almost no financial support or other kinds of resources. They haven't actually gotten a whole lot of respect for the effort that they've done, and they certainly haven't gotten a whole lot of attention. They've really been focused on serving students and figuring out ways to make instruction more accessible and more available to our students. So if you look at what we're already doing, Governor, in 2012-13 academic year, the California Community Colleges offered over 41,000 online courses to more than 620,000 students throughout the state and beyond. So, we really are actually pretty good at this. But what we could use is an investment in the systemic resources for the system so that we really could do a much better job of supporting our faculty and our students and the other support services that we need to provide to students online. So if you'd like to make an investment there, that'd be great, and we think we could do good work with that. So the governor said, well, that sounds good to me. I think I'll do that. And he came up with a proposal for increasing access and success of students through online instruction. It's a $57 million grant over 55 months that started in December of 2013. The California Community College Chancellor's Office put this out as a competitive grant to the state. And our district, along with our colleagues at Butte, at the Butte Glen Community College District, we put in the winning application, and we are now the lead agency for this project on behalf of the 112 colleges in the state. So the governor really asked us to focus on a variety of very specific things in terms of how we increase access and success through online instruction. So, in a nutshell, what do we hope to accomplish through the Online Education Initiative? Well, to boil it down to its simplest context, what we've been asked to do is help students complete their educational goals. And the governor, when he says educational goal, he really is focusing on transfer. He wants more students to transfer from the community colleges to the four-year schools, CSU and UC and other four-year schools. Because he's got business leaders from throughout the state at his office saying, you know, Governor, we can't grow our businesses and subsequently the economy of the state and, oh, by the way, the tax base of the state until we have more qualified individuals in the workforce. And by qualified individuals, we mean bachelor degree holding people. And no matter what source you believe, there's several sources on how many more bachelor degree individuals we need in the workforce. But some numbers I've seen say we need an ongoing, continuous flow of 60,000 more bachelor degree individuals per year for the foreseeable future. Or I've seen other numbers that say we need 1 million more bachelor degree individuals in the workforce by 2020. Either number you believe, the number is huge, and we're going to have to really ramp up our efforts to get more people through to the bachelor's program. So the governor, I think, very shrewdly understands that generally speaking, the most academically effective and also the most cost-effective method for people to get a bachelor's degree in California is by starting in a community college and transferring on to a four-year school. So that's really what we're focusing on, is helping students complete the associate degree for transfer by having greater access to courses through online instruction and being able to transfer more expeditiously to a four-year school. There are essentially three basic components of the OEI. As I mentioned, we have not had a significant system-wide investment in systemic resources for students. So we haven't consistently provided things like tutoring or degree planning or proctoring or library services or things of that sort. Now, individual colleges and districts have certainly done pretty good work on providing these services on their own, but it's kind of hit and miss. Some schools do really well, others not so well. And a lot of it has to do with what kind of money do they have to invest. And there has been no stream of resources from the state specifically to support this. So it's kind of all over the map, and we want to try to improve the quality and availability of resources for students. Same is true of faculty. Again, some colleges have exceptional resources for faculty. They have instructional designers, they have accessibility specialists, they have technologists, they have media folks, they have all kinds of resources to help faculty develop the best quality online instructional material. And other colleges have nothing, and it's the faculty member doing it on their own, doing the best they can with what they know and what they have. Again, we have not provided that systemic investment in faculty support or other kinds of services for students that would be meaningful. And on top of that, every district or even every college has kind of gone at it on their own. And one of the things that we also have not done is we haven't leveraged our sheer size as the largest system of higher education on the planet to be able to get the best terms and conditions, the best quality services at the best prices, and also have a voice in influencing the product development roadmap of the various partners that we need to engage with to deliver effective online instruction. So really what we're trying to do in OEI is provide better resources for students, better resources for faculty, and do that in a way that really leverages the size and the economies of opportunities for economies of scale that we have in the California community colleges. But ultimately what OEI is turning out to be, and probably most importantly, is a new culture, a new collaborative culture for the California community colleges that's really focused on what works for students. How can we provide these resources in a way that helps our students be more successful at their home campus in achieving their goal and transferring, or whatever their other goals may be. And that's a really new, exciting thing. We're seeing faculty from throughout the state, colleagues, administrators, and staff from throughout the state coming together and working together in ways that we just haven't done before, mostly because we haven't had the resources to come together in those ways, to be able to figure out what's best for students and how can we serve them more effectively, particularly online. In terms of resources for students, some of the things that we've been working on over the first about 18 months of the grant are pretty significant. So we have developed online course readiness material. So one of the things that we know pretty significantly from the literature is that students don't do as well in online courses from a retention and success perspective as they might do in a face-to-face course. And in fact, generally speaking, student retention and success rates are about 10 to 12% lower than comparable face-to-face courses. And one of the things that the research shows us is that a big factor in student success is the student prepared to do well specifically in an online course? Do they understand how an online course works? Do they understand what's expected of them? Do they understand how it's different from a face-to-face course? I hear a lot of students say, oh, well, if it's online and I don't have to actually go to class, it's going to be easier. And in fact, actually the opposite is true. Online classes can often be more difficult than a face-to-face class because the learner has a lot more responsibility for their own learning in an online course than you might find in a typical face-to-face course. So we've identified through the areas where students need to have better skill sets, have better set of expectations about how an online course works. And so we prepared an online course readiness assessment that then gives students a very good diagnosis of where they're ready, where they're not ready, and then provides them with connections to tutorial materials where they can upgrade their skills or upgrade their expectations or whatever the case may be to be fully ready to be successful in an online course. So that material has been developed. It's being piloted by our online readiness cohort, pilot college cohort, and will be tested throughout the first half of 2015, and we'll begin to make those resources available to all of the colleges in the state at no cost as soon as we've finished the pilot on that. We're also working on basic skills support. So another reason why we know students don't do well in online classes, certainly true of face-to-face classes in a similar vein, is that they're not ready to do college-level English and math work. And so we're looking to provide students with a foundation in basic skills to help them tune up their English and math skills, to be ready to do college-level work, but also to be ready to take the high-stakes placement tests that we require them to take and to give them opportunities to better prepare for that. We're working on putting together a pilot right now. Our own Barbara Olowski, faculty member here at Anza, is leading that initiative for the project, and we're working very closely with some of the most innovative software developers in the country in putting together some online materials to both assess and diagnose student readiness and basic skills and provide them with tutorials to improve their skills. In the fall, we did a request for a proposal, an RFP as we say, for a statewide tutoring system. What that really means is a couple of things. One is that we have contracted with a company called Link Systems to provide all of our colleges with an online tutoring platform. So what this is essentially a website where students can go, sign in, and meet with a tutor online, and they can do text chat or possibly video chat or audio chat, whatever, however they're most comfortable interacting. There's a whiteboard where they can do problem solving. Students can submit questions or assignments for review or papers for comment, things of that sort, and interact with the tutor online. This could be for an online class or for online tutoring for a face-to-face class, either way. We'll be providing that platform to all the colleges in the state at no cost. It's available for all the colleges to use as they deem appropriate. They can use that platform with their own tutors. Colleges often have a variety of different kinds of tutors. They might have volunteers. They might have honor students, work-study students, hourly, temporary employees who work as tutors. They may have professional tutors. They may have a whole range of different kinds of tutors. You can use this platform. All the colleges in the state will be able to use this platform with any kind of tutor they may have already working for them. Also, as part of this contract, if you need tutoring at a time, say 2 o'clock in the morning, when you don't have a tutor available, or in a discipline where you don't have a tutor available, you'll be able to contract through the same company, Link Systems, for professional tutors to augment your local tutoring workforce. So if you need that, if a student only can be available at 2 o'clock in the morning because they're, I don't know, deployed in Afghanistan and still taking classes with us, or what have you, or they're just in, their work schedule. They work a swing shift and they do their schoolwork from midnight to 4 a.m. Lots of different reasons. But if you need those bizarre hours or need specialty disciplines, you can do that. We've negotiated a statewide rate for professional tutors. For those colleges that are part of the OEI project, Pilot College will be providing some set of centrally funded tutoring hours that they can use, but all colleges will be able to buy off this contract. It's administered by the Foundation for California Community Colleges, so it's easily accessible to all colleges, and should be that every college's purchasing department knows how to use a foundation contract to buy off of. So we've tried to give the colleges maximum flexibility in how they use the online tutoring services. We're working on how we can better support counselors and advisors with online tools. We've licensed a product statewide called Zoom. If you want to find out more about it, you can look at zoom.us, and it's a very nice, lightweight, very easy to use video conferencing, desktop video conferencing system. We're working with counselors and advisors who want to work remotely with students and be able to interact with them via audio and video, and maybe even share documents like an ed plan or things of that sort in a counseling session. We're also looking to see how we can incorporate that into a common course management system, which I'll talk about in a little more in a minute. So if you want a Zoom account, if you go to cccconfer.org, which is the place, one of the other conferencing systems we have in the state, and go to the Tech Help Center, send them an email, ask them for a Zoom account, and they will do that for you at no cost. We'll be getting more information out to the system about how to access Zoom and how to use it and what it's good for, and some tutorials on that pretty soon. We're also looking at trying to streamline access for students. One of the things that we know is that if a student, let's say, is admitted at Foothill College or De Anza College and they want to take a class, say, at Long Beach, then we've really made it very difficult and cumbersome for them to do that. And we want to try to streamline access, and we're going to do that in a couple of ways, and I'll talk more specifically about those ways in just a second. One of the other things, we talked about developing more systemic resources for faculty. One of the things that we heard a lot from faculty was, we really could use some help with designing effective and engaging online courses. And we really could use some course standards. So we put together a work group of faculty and distance ed coordinators from throughout the state. There are already a number of really exceptional online course design standards. Again, we're not talking about course content, we're talking about course design. There's very good standards. There's one from an organization called Quality Matters. There's another one called INACOL, I-N-A-C-O-L. INACOL is a long-standing, very good standard. Even Blackboard, the LMS company, has some very good design standards. California State University has created some of their own standards. So this work group, again, mostly of faculty from throughout the state, got together and looked at all of those standards and said, well, how can we take the best of all of these and really pull them together in a way that uniquely serves the California community colleges, our particular system, the residents of our state, our kind of the students that we work with, the faculty that we know so well? How can we customize these standards for the California community colleges. And they did a very good job, and they've come up with some great standards. They worked very, very closely with the statewide academic senate to make sure that we have their support, and that's been working very well. And related to that, they've created a course review process. So how would a faculty member take those standards and review their course to see how it measures up against the standards? So we've done that as well, and we've been recruiting and hiring faculty from throughout the state to serve with us as course reviewers. So if you apply to be a course reviewer and you're chosen, then we bring you together with another group of reviewers for a couple of days training to learn about the standards, learn how to use the standards, learn how to use the review process. And then as we ask you to review online courses, those reviewers are actually paid to do that. It's a lot of work, and we don't want to ask anybody to do it out of the goodness of their heart, because it's a substantial amount of effort. And so we pay course reviewers to review courses after they've been trained in the review process and know how to use the standards. We've continued to develop the standards and the review process with input from faculty throughout the state, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We've also been working to hire instructional designers and accessibility specialists. We have a lot of really talented faculty who know how to create great online course content, but sometimes when we're getting a little more particular in light of course design standards, they may find it difficult to say, well, you know what I really need is an element over here that's video-based or a simulation-based thing or an animation-based thing, and I'm not really sure how to build that. And so we're working with the @ONE project, which is the state's professional development agency in Southern California, to provide faculty with access to instructional designers and other technologists and accessibility specialists to say, we can help you create that content because nobody can be an expert in all these things, and you can serve as the subject matter expert, and we'll help put together the high-end content that helps your course meet those standards. So that's coming together as well. So we'll have a cadre of support people that can work with faculty on improving course design. One of the things I want to make sure that everybody understands is the course review process is a formative process. It is in no way meant to be an evaluative process. And in fact, in the MOU that we have with the various colleges that are participating in the pilot, we've said you really may not use the results of a course review to evaluate a faculty member. This is really a peer-to-peer process, one faculty member reviewing another faculty member's content against these design standards, and providing them with that assessment report so they can decide how they want to change their course to meet the standards. So reason why we've got some of these photographs on the screen here is this is really, these are pictures of a review process underway, and as you can see, it really is a peer-to-peer process, and it's really meant to help faculty find ways to create more engaging content online, not to be punitive or evaluative in any way, shape, or form. Creating other things that we're doing in terms of helping faculty create quality online courses. We're providing ongoing professional development opportunities for faculty. In February, we held our first Creative Summit. This was a 2-day opportunity for faculty to come together and meet with one another and talk about their courses and kinds of things that have been successful and new and creative and innovative ideas that they've come up with for their online classes. We had about 110, 120 faculty and distance ed coordinators and other support people from the pilot colleges participate in San Diego in February, and we'll probably do these Creative Summits 3 or 4 times a year. We've also been working, again, very closely with the @ONE program down at Mount San Jacinto College to redesign the online teaching courses. One of the things that a lot of faculty have said is, you know, I've been teaching online for quite a few years now. I know really well this part of it. This other part I'm not so sure about. So I'd really like to take a course that respects my prior learning and really doesn't force me to go through stuff that I already know very well and gives me the opportunity to augment my knowledge base with new skills and new information. And so we're working on that and trying to bring that down from a 1-year course to about a 10-week course, depending on if you want to do all 5 modules of the course, it would take you about 10 weeks. But more importantly, we're really trying to foster faculty participation in a network of peers, a network of professionals, a community of good practice where we can help each other throughout the state learn new and improved ways of working with students in online instruction. And that's coming together very nicely in a lot of different ways. I mentioned streamlining access for students. Really, there are kind of 4 components to this part of the initiative. The Common Course Management System, which I'll talk about in great length. The Course Exchange, which is still coming together. The Portal Project, which overlaps a number of projects within the state, including OEI, and the provision of some scalable tools and services, which we've touched on a little bit, and I'll elaborate more on in a minute. So the Common Course Management System, one of the things that the governor said and the Chancellor's office said to us is, you know, we really think there's an opportunity for us to leverage our size and get a really good course management system, or as some people say, learning management system, at a much better price and support it better than if we're doing it all by ourselves. So we did a very extensive RFP process that started last summer. We put out a request for information. We got an idea of who might be interested in working with us. We used that to refine our technical and functional specifications. We worked very closely with a large number of faculty throughout the state. We had a steering committee of about 50 faculty, and we had other involvement from about another 400 faculty from throughout the state. So people that were giving us ideas about what were important features and functionality and qualities of the ideal course management system, what were the kinds of things they wanted to be able to do that they couldn't do right now, things of that sort. We used all of that input to put together a very extensive RFP. Was released in October and finished. It came back to us in November. We had about 8 proposals come through. We narrowed that down to 3 finalists. Those 3 finalists were Blackboard, Canvas from Instructure, and a company called Remote Learner that supports Moodle, which is an open-based platform that we use here at the Anza. From there, we sent teams of faculty and distance ed coordinators to do site visits for each one of these products. We went to 2 campuses for each product, one that the vendor recommended and one that we chose ourselves. We spent an entire day with the teams at those campuses learning what they liked, what they didn't like about the product, about doing business with the company, all those kinds of things. We also did conference calls with other states like Kentucky and North Dakota and one more I can't remember, maybe Washington, about where they had done a statewide or system-wide adoption of each one of these companies and what was their experience there. And then we brought each one of the companies together for a full-day interview in Sacramento in February, and the entire committee spent a day with each one of the vendors and interviewed them. It was a very structured interview. It was facilitated by one of our really excellent consultants, Phil Hill, who's one of the country's leaders in exploring the course management and learning management space, and really got an idea of what their products were really like and what they, more importantly, what they would be really like to work with as a partner. And so we had 9 students as part of that. From all over the state. We had one of our own students from Foothill College as part of that evaluation team. The students had a very active voice in this, and we had a very collaborative discussion and dialogue about which one would serve us best. So on the 4th day in Sacramento, we spent the day deliberating, and discussing which one we liked the best. And ultimately, it was a near unanimous decision for Canvas. So at this point in time, we're wrapping up the contract negotiations with them and should be rolling this out to the pilot colleges as well as other colleges in the state who are interested in using it probably as early as this summer. So that's coming together pretty nicely. I've mentioned a couple times the pilot colleges. We have 3 cohorts of pilot colleges. When we initially were searching for pilot colleges, we kind of thought, well, you know, we'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll be really lucky if we get 10 or 12 colleges to agree to be pilots. Well, when we put out the call for participation, we got about 58 colleges asked if they could be part of the pilot. So we had to kind of revamp our pilot college strategy and expand it a little bit. So we decided that we would go with 24 pilot colleges and divide them into 3 cohorts. And you see here, there's a full launch cohort. This is the group that will be really doing a lot of work on testing the Common Course Management System, the Canvas system. They'll be testing any of the other components that they want to test, such as Readiness or Tutoring, other things that become ready over the course of the pilot. And they're bringing their courses through the course review process, making sure that they meet all the standards, and getting them ready to be offered to students statewide through the Common Course Management System. As you see, our own Foothill College is one of the full launch colleges. The other 2 cohorts are the online tutoring cohort. Again, there, as the name implies, will be testing mostly the online tutoring system and using that within the context of their existing course management system. And then we have the student readiness cohort. Again, as the name implies, they'll be testing the student readiness materials, the assessment, and the tutorial materials that have been developed, doing that within the context of their current course management system. They'll also be then staged to become the next full launch groups as we bring more and more colleges into the project. So those are the 24 colleges we're working with right now, about 1/4 of the system. So we talked about the exchange a little bit as a streamlining access component. And so what is the exchange? Well, it's still a little amorphous. We're still trying to figure out exactly what it is and exactly how it'll work. But essentially, in its essence, what it is it's us as a system coming together and agreeing to work together collaboratively and cooperatively to make things easier for students. And some of this is a little tricky, but we're bringing together the right stakeholders to have the conversation about how can we make it easier for students to participate with us more broadly throughout the state to be able to get the courses they need to successfully transfer. So some of the things that we're working on with the exchange is the development of reciprocity agreements among the colleges to say, well, if a student is admitted at Foothill College and Foothill College determines that student is an in-state resident, then that's good enough for everybody else. So we don't have to make the student go through the whole residency determination again just because they want to take one online course from another school. We'll find ways to share that data and allow other colleges to consume the results of our application process so that they can matriculate those students locally. Again, easier said than done. There's a lot of work to do in terms of business process agreements, in terms of maybe regulatory reform, in some cases legislative reform, but we have really a strong commitment from the California Community College Chancellor's Office that as we identify those opportunities for streamlining the processes, if there are regulatory or legislative barriers to that, they'll help us work those out so that we can make it easier for students. We'll be able to provide broader access to resources for both the colleges and the students through the exchange so that, for example, we have a consistent set of support services throughout the state, so if a student is taking a class in one place, they have access to all of those same support resources wherever they may be taking classes. And again, really the idea here is to help our completion rates across the state to get more students to complete the associate degree for transfer and to move on to CSU or UC or other four-year schools to complete their bachelor's degree. Again, as I talked about previously, some of the significant resources coming out for students. Tutoring we've got coming out that will be available within the next couple of weeks to all of the colleges in the state. In fact, I think an announcement just went out from our project team to all the colleges who were very, very eager to, many were very eager to see what they could use, and particularly since it was centrally funded. We are testing the Readiness solutions, and as soon as that testing wraps up, we'll begin to make those available to colleges throughout the state, probably as early as summer or fall, but certainly at the latest in spring of 2016. Again, working with underprepared students in developing and piloting basic skills programs, and we hope to have that in pilot mode by this summer. A lot of faculty have told us that they need a proctoring solution in order to maintain the integrity of exams or other high-stakes assignments. So we're getting ready to release a request for proposal, an RFP, for a proctoring solution that would probably take two forms. One is that we would develop a proctoring network throughout the state where we would agree to help each other out, and if we needed, if a faculty member felt that it was important that a student take a test in person and they weren't able to come to one of our to the home campus to take that test, they could go to another campus closer to their home to do that, and that we would facilitate that through the project. We're also looking at technology-mediated solutions. Some faculty have said, well, it's not important for me that they come in person and take the test, but it is important for me that they don't have access to other resources while they're taking the test. So I want them just to be focused on the test. I don't want them, they're Googling their answers and things of that sort. So there are a variety of technology-mediated proctoring solutions that include things like lockdown browsers and other kinds of things that help assure the integrity of the examination process. So we'll be releasing that RFP this spring, and hopefully have something in place for piloting in the late summer, early fall. And then the course review activities continue. Again, we're working with a lot of faculty throughout the state to get input on the course design standards. We've gotten some great input from faculty about how we can streamline that, how we can reduce some of the redundancy in the standards, how we can make it a simpler and easier process, but still be an effective review of courses against the design standards. And we're getting really good feedback on the standards and the review process from faculty throughout the state, and are continuing to refine the review process. What are some of the next steps? As I mentioned, we're getting ready to roll out the Canvas Common Course Management System. We should have that ready for the pilot colleges to begin using any day, and certainly begin piloting before summer. We expect a small cohort of colleges to offer some test courses in the system in the summer, and then all of the pilots participating in offering courses for the fall of 2015. And then we'll continue to expand that as fast as we can. Again, we have ongoing professional development opportunities for faculty, distance ed coordinators, support staff, anybody who's involved in supporting online students. We're hosting a variety of things, including the Multi-Institutional Matriculation Summit coming in April, and ongoing course reviewer training. We're doing one here at the Krause Center for Innovation on the Foothill campus in March, and we'll do another one in June. The online teaching conference is now part of the OEI project. The next conference is coming up in June 18th and 19th at the San Diego Convention Center. Registration is open, and usually we have about 500 to 600 faculty and other technologists, distance ed coordinators come. I expect it will be bigger this year, particularly because of OEI. We're continuing to work on the course exchange, as I mentioned, and really focusing right now on business process agreements, nailing those down, and then figuring out how can we automate this so that it's not a burden on A&R staff or on the student or anybody else. And then we continue to bring out additional resources for students and faculty as we identify those needs and are able to provide those, leveraging our economies of scale within the system. If you want more information about what's happening on OEI, we have a project website, which is ccconlineed.org. That gets updated pretty frequently. It's undergoing a pretty significant redesign, as we've gotten some very good feedback from folks in the field about exactly what is important to them to know about the project, and that's underway at the moment. But that's an active website and getting better all the time. The Tech Edge newsletter comes out from the California Community College Technology Center at Butte College. Comes out once a month. There are great updates on OEI, as well as the other two big projects in the state, the Common Assessment Initiative and the Ed Planning Initiative. Anza College is part of the Common Assessment, and we'll be working very closely with them on that. Our Executive Director, Pat James, puts out a biweekly blog on the OEI to let people know what's going on, and she has some really excellent information and does some great recaps of some of the really vital conversations that are happening throughout the state and evolving this project as we go along. And if you need to get in touch with Pat, if you have questions about OEI or need more information or have a suggestion or whatever, you can reach Pat at jamespat@fhda.edu, or you can reach me at Moreau Joseph at fhda.edu, and we'll be happy to get back to you as quickly as we can. So that is the update on the Online Ed initiative. And if you have any questions, please let me or Pat know, and we'll be happy to get back to you as quickly as we can. Thanks for watching.